Perfect, thank you. I'm going to start just with a small correction. We're the New Brunswick Coalition for Pay Equity, not the Canadian Coalition for Pay Equity. So we're an organization whose goal is a fair and equitable society. So as an organization, we work to achieve this by ensuring the realization of pay equity and to just working conditions for people in women-dominated jobs. So first, well, I'm going to focus mainly on a paid sick leave. I just want to make sure that we understand what pay equity is, as it's in the name of our organization. So pay equality is equal pay for equal work. So that's when we would compare wages between individuals in the same job, where pay equity is equal pay for work of equal value. So we do this by comparing jobs that are predominantly done by men to jobs that are predominantly done by women. Today I want to talk about paid sick leave. So the COVID-19 pandemic really illustrated that paid sick leave is also a public health measure, as it's critical to protecting the health and safety of workers, as well as the public that they serve, by helping to contain the spread of viruses. So everyday New Brunswickers are forced to put their health, wages, and jobs at risk when they become ill. And in the case of many women, when they are required to care for a sick child or loved one. In this presentation, I'm going to be making recommendations on the proposed establishment of 10 paid sick days using a gender-based analysis. So this is going to put a particular focus on its impact on women in the labor force. So the proposed changes are intended to protect employee rights and increase gender equality. So if we look at the work sectors that are at risk, workers who experience the greatest economic insecurity are also the least likely to have access to paid sick leave. What type of work is least likely to offer paid sick days? Low wage and part-time jobs. Over 58% of Canadians don't have access to paid sick leave, and that number increases to 70% for lower wage industries. Who are most likely to be employed in these precarious jobs? Women, and disproportionately racialized women. They are overrepresented in occupations and industries with lower job quality as a result of the systemic undervaluing of jobs historically or mostly done by women, such as care workers, cashiers, cleaners, clerical, and catering. So the 5 C's. New Brunswick women make up the majority of minimum wage earners and those who hold multiple jobs. As a result, they are less likely to have access to paid sick leave. The gender wage gap is something that continues to put women at an economic disadvantage. There was a $9,700 gap between the median annual income of men and women in New Brunswick in 2020, and this gap is even greater for Indigenous and racialized women in New Brunswick. So lower earnings make it even more difficult for women to take unpaid leave. If we look at that gap more closely, we'll see that the stats I have are from 2016. We see that Indigenous women earned had a 45% gap compared to the earnings of men. Immigrant women saw a 38% gap, with women overall seeing a 31% gap in wages compared to their male counterparts. So when we look at the impact of low wages, we see that the COVID-19 pandemic really highlighted the importance of these low wage jobs. Many of them earning the title of essential workers and even seeing temporary pay bumps in some cases. So we've seen the vulnerability of the workers that are in these jobs. Not only are they low paid, but often they have no sick leave. So these are workers who do not have the luxury of choosing between a day's worth of pay and their health. I have a statistic here from 2022 that says that more than 3/4 of Canadians, that's 78%, say their personal finances have worsened due to inflation. And over half of Canadians, 54%, say they're living paycheck to paycheck. So when we're living paycheck to paycheck, that difference of an unpaid sick day and a paid sick day make a huge difference. Over the past few years, we heard from care workers who care for the most vulnerable New Brunswickers. So seniors, children, and women fleeing violence, people living with disabilities. And these care workers couldn't afford to stay home sick, but did not want to risk passing on their illness to others. So we must learn from the pandemic, because we know the lack of paid sick days made some workplaces unsafe as people went to work sick because they could not afford to stay home. This was particularly problematic in long-term care facilities, which suffered from high infection rates. We even had one home care worker told us that she lost a longtime client because she took unpaid time off when she contracted COVID. When she returned to work a week later, not only had she lost a week's worth of pay, but she also lost a paying client. So it's the perfect storm. Lower wage workers don't have paid days, but they cannot afford to stay home. So they go to work, which contributes to spreading illness. Women make up nearly half of the labor force, and at the same time, women bear a disproportionate share of family caregiving responsibilities. So the lack of paid sick leave forces women to make difficult decisions, like going to work when they are sick, or deal with a large gap in their next paycheck. That gap could be the difference in their ability to pay rent or put food on the table. And this situation is compounded for single mothers who often shoulder the brunt of their children's health care as well as their own. Access to paid sick leave could lessen the economic burden faced by women who bear a disproportionate share of family caregiving responsibilities. They are more likely to need time off to care for sick children and loved ones. Paid sick leave would provide them more stability and security while benefiting their employers through improved productivity and retention. So to summarize, refusing to provide paid sick leave is to subject the lower paid workforce, which is largely female and racialized, to poor working conditions and to put their lives at risk. If we want the labor market to work for all of us, we need a systemic change in how we value and pay for women's work. And that includes better working conditions such as paid sick leave. Paid sick leave saves lives, and the New Brunswick Coalition for Pay Equity calls on this committee to support and recommend the adoption of Bill 27 to provide 10 paid sick days to every New Brunswicker.